hospitable for humans.
That kind of notion of random, sudden destruction, I think people find very scary. But there are a couple of reasons why I think we should not worry about vacuum decay. One is that this theory that it could happen at all is very tenuous. Another is that the predictions that we have at the moment suggest that if it can happen, the likelihood of it happening anytime in the next 10 to the power of 100 years is extraordinarily small, like just ridiculously unlikely. The other thing is, like, you wouldn't even notice it, right? Like, it would happen so fast that you wouldn't see it, you wouldn't feel it, you wouldn't notice. Like, it would be a total non-event. Like, everything would just stop. Nobody would miss you. There's no tragic aftermath. Like, it's just over.
And that's why they don't make movies where Bruce Willis saves us from vacuum decay, because the film would be too short, obviously.
It's very hard to make it dramatic. There's a book by Greg Egan called Schild's Ladder, where it's a science fiction novel where he explores the possibility of a kind of vacuum decay that happens at half the speed of light. So you can actually make it a dramatic event in the story. But something that happens at the speed of light is, you just can't talk about it because you don't even know about it.
I find it very interesting as well that different scientists talk in different ways about how they approach telling an audience of non-scientists in particular about the end of the universe. And I know you've considered this on many occasions, you're talking to me that this is not something which is in everyone's day-to-day conversation.
Yeah, and there's different aspects of it, right? So there's an aspect of just explaining the science in an approachable way, but there's also, you sometimes have to be a little bit careful that you don't just make it sound really hopeless and bleak. One of my colleagues, when I was talking to her about these topics for the book, she said that she gives talks about the end of the universe, about the heat death, and people have cried. Like you can set off some big emotions, and it's useful to keep that in mind and be aware of how you're presenting this stuff so that you're not just making everyone very, very sad or frightened. Sometimes when I talk about the possibility of vacuum decay, which is a very sudden end of the universe, I get messages from people saying that they're full of anxiety and they can't sleep thinking about this stuff. So, you do have to be a little bit careful.
If anything, I would say that we scientists and philosophers have not done quite the job we could do in relating our discoveries to ordinary human experience. I think there's a lot of implications for what we know about our lives from what we've learned about the science underlying them. Not just the beginning and ending of the universe, but literally what we are. The fact that we are part of the physical universe, the fact that we are made of atoms and particles, whose behavior we understand pretty well. I think that these are all profound facts, and you should be impressed by them. You should be made a little dizzy by them. They're so outside our everyday experience that it should take some time and some grappling with to really come to terms with them.
To carve a slice out of the problem of the universe's fate, an astrophysicist would have to make an extraordinary claim. One that requires, as the late astronomer Carl Sagan would say, extraordinary evidence to make it believable. And in 1998, a remarkable U-turn in our understanding of the cosmos and its destiny was unleashed. A young postdoc, Adam Rees, began combing the universe with the Hubble Space Telescope for the movement of distant stars. He was hoping to work out the rate at which the universe was expanding. He, like many, expected to find evidence for a gradual slowdown in the expansion resulting from the influence of gravity by the invisible matter it contains. But far from slowing down, he found the universe was speeding up. Another spasm of cosmological vertigo strikes.
For me personally, it's astonishing that, we could sit here on this, third rock from the sun and look at tiny dots with telescopes and infer the past and the future of this vast, almost unimaginable thing we call the universe. You need a very luminous object so that you can see it from far away. And that object has to be something whose luminosity you understand well, that it's what cosmologists call standard, a standard candle, kind of like a mile marker, milepost. And so a certain class of supernovae, exploding stars, are recognized to always explode at about the same mass, a famous limit called the Chandrasekhar limit, after the Indian astrophysicist Chandrasekhar first understood this in the 1930s. So in the 1990s, astronomers had recognized that we could pick out these kinds of objects to measure vast distances and the expansion history of the universe.
So this change came about as you looked at what are described as you've said, cosmic mile markers. What was it that you discovered as you observed these?
We looked at some of the most distant supernovae that we could see. These were ones that were telling us about the state of the universe when it was much, much younger, comparing those to nearby ones. And we found that they had much greater redshifts. Now, redshift was our measure of how much space had expanded between then and now. And we found, to our surprise, that the growth for a given distance was greater than we expected. The universe was growing faster. It was actually accelerating. And this was opposite of what we expected, and it has indicated to really every cosmologist that the universe is filled with a kind of energy that we call dark energy. And this was a great surprise to us. You know, we sit here now some 25 years later, and we say, oh, well, that's just the way it is. But I can tell you at the time, there's a lot of stress and nerves, and that takes a long time to shake out.
This realization that the cosmos is also accelerating as it expands, driven by some kind of mysterious propulsive energy, is probably, after Hubble's discovery of the expanding universe, the 20th century's greatest rewrite of the universe. That loaf of raisin bread that's been baking away, it's not only rising, with the raisins moving ever further apart as the doughy space in between grows larger, but it's also rising ever faster. Every time you tuck into a slice of malt loaf now, hopefully you'll be contemplating the expansion of the universe as well as the thickness of the butter, since Einstein's maths that we heard of earlier had been right all along. Back in 1917, Einstein had originally proposed the existence of a bizarre propulsive energy that counteracts the gravitational pull of existing matter. He'd formulated it in his equations to mesh with the scientific consensus at the time of a static universe, referring to this energy as the cosmological constant. As astrophysicist Mike Turner explains, the maths has now come back to bite.
Einstein put in this fudge factor, and this is the amazing thing about mathematics and science is once you take the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. And so he eventually famously discarded it because the universe was expanding, so you didn't need a cosmological constant to balance against matter to keep a static universe, which is what he thought was there. But what has come back is something exactly like the cosmological constant, something whose gravity is repulsive. Einstein certainly didn't use this word, but the cosmological constant has repulsive gravity. He balanced it against the attractive gravity of matter to give you a static universe. And so now you've got in your toolbox something that you can't throw away because he found it. You can throw it away if you explain why it's zero. So what we have is something that looks a lot like the cosmological constant, used in not the way Einstein did, because he was using it to get a static universe. And today, it's 70% of the show. It's running the universe right now.
Mike Turner is just the right person to talk about the dark side of the universe. After all, he's the person who coined the term dark energy, and it's stuck for now.
The first name I tried was funny energy. Oh my goodness, did that get a good response? People said, that's wonderful. It's so unthreatening. It seems so friendly. And I said, good. So we're going to go and try to convince Congress that they need to spend $1 billion to understand funny energy. They said, you need a more scientific name. I have an old transparency from May of 1998 where it says funny energy. And then in August, I gave a talk in Australia and said, this is why I think it should be called dark energy. And dark energy stuck. I think for good reason that you need a name for it. And you need a name. It can't have all the truth in it. You know, you can get people to quibble about it, but it works.
Your term dark energy, though, isn't it just a little bit confusing? Because not only do we have dark matter, but now dark energy as the new player in the cosmos.
So you have two compact names, dark matter, dark energy. They can be confused a little bit, but that's even good. When somebody says, oh my God, what's the difference between dark matter and dark energy? I can say, well, it's very easy. Dark matter holds everything in the universe together, and dark energy is causing the expansion of the universe to speed up and controls the destiny of the universe. Then the story is so wonderful. We live in a universe not dominated by the atoms we're made out of, but by two dark lords, dark matter and dark energy. And they've been battling. Earlier than 5 billion years ago, it was the Lord dark matter that was dominating and building structure. And then 5 billion years ago, the Lord dark energy took over. No more structures being built, and the expansion of the universe is racing towards a destiny that we don't understand.
And according to Katie Mann, until we better understand this cosmic acceleration and the nature of the dark energy, we cannot hope to understand the destiny of the universe. The possibilities are wide open.
So we're pretty sure that the big crunch is not going to happen. We're pretty sure that the expansion is not going to stop and turn around. But if it did, and because we don't understand dark energy, we can't say for sure that it won't, right? Because whatever's making the universe accelerate in its expansion now, there's a chance that it's something that could change its nature and cause the acceleration to reverse, right? We really don't know. But anyway, so if it did stop and turn around and things started to come closer together again, then, all that expansion would be in reverse. And so instead of the galaxies moving away from us, galaxies would be moving toward us. And instead of the universe getting colder and darker, it would get hotter and brighter. And so all of the other matter would come at us. It would squish the light into harder radiation, like ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma ray. And the idea of being trapped in that kind of compressing furnace, that's what scares me much more than vacuum decay. Because you would see it coming. You would see that the galaxies are getting closer. You would see that space is getting hotter and brighter. And there would be just nothing you could do about it.
Throughout this series, we've mainly devoted our thoughts to the birth and evolution and fate of the universe. But when we say the universe, what we're really saying is our universe. Because in the cosmological imagination, other universes could exist. Outside, parallel to, or distant from, but mirroring our own. Or, in writing the story of our universe, are they just an imaginary comfort to counter the bleak fate of the universe we know? We don't know whether there are other universes or even what that means. We have different kinds of other universes that scientists like to contemplate. And I personally am completely on board with taking them seriously. They may or may not be there. Depends on the details. Again, we don't know for sure. But there's no reason to dismiss them out of hand just because we can't observe them. Again, that would be very anthropocentric of us. On my own podcast called Mindscape, I recently did an episode about immortality. And I made this point that, according to our best current understanding, the universe won't let intelligent life last forever. Everything will sort of fade away in the ultimate heat death of the universe. But there is a escape hatch there. Maybe you could make other universes where there could also be life. I think that it would not be completely satisfying if that were the case, but we can imagine that they might be there. Maybe that makes us feel a little bit better about the long-term fate of the cosmos.
Do you have ideas where you think that this, for those people who are worried about the level of existential anxiety, here is a consolation that comes from our scientific understanding?
Occasionally, I do indulge in such consolations, but I think that my main point is suck it up. And I think that facing what the universe is telling us ultimately is more rewarding than trying to find consolations within it, which is why I'm constantly banging on about the finitude of life and the smallness of us and our experiences compared to the vast sweep of the cosmos. The average human lifespan is about 3 billion heartbeats. It's just an average. You're not going to live longer by sitting in your chair and not letting your heart rate go faster, but 3 billion is a very evocative number because it's a big number, but it's not gigantically big. It's not like, federal budget deficit kind of big. You can feel those heartbeats going by one in a very immediate way, and only having 3 billion of them accessible to you